Right. Recently spoke about female PCT, and I want to pick up again on that for the simple reason that I've changed my mind, effectively. So the first thing we need to establish is the female cycle, which is roughly 28 days. There's some variation between person to person. Now, the first part of the cycle, the first 14 days, is classed as a follicular phase. And the last 14 days is classed as a luteal phase. Some people will class a few days in the middle around the 14-day mark as mid-cycle. And often when you get blood tests as females, it will show you three ranges. It will show you follicle, it will show you mid-cycle, and it will show you luteal. Now, day one of your cycle starts with menstruating, bleeding. This roughly lasts about 5 days. It varies from person to person. Now, at this point, most hormones are relatively baseline. There's a slight increase in FSH, and towards the end of the menstrual, there is a slight peak in estrogen, and body temperature is generally reasonable. As we get towards the 14-day mark, body temperature will take a severe dip and then a high increase. Estrogen will progressively start to increase around the 7-day mark, peaking just before 14 days. LH will peak massively at 14 days. FSH will dip slightly before 14 days and then peak. And then post 14 days, LH drops rapidly, FSH drops rapidly, and estrogen drops within about 2 days, whereas progesterone will spike. And that spikes over about 5 to 7 days, peaking somewhere around 20, 21 days, and then that starts to drop off. And at about 27 days, you hit a very low point of all hormones. When literally for a matter of hours, half a day, they are all very low, and then FSH starts to increase and the hormones follow suit. Now, originally, I'd said that it was a good idea to run Novadex, tamoxifen, same drug, just different names. And this was based on some anecdotal evidence where some females I'd spoke to and a coach I'd spoke to had seen improved symptoms post-cycle. Following a conversation with an individual today regarding some issues they're having, and actually what caused us to look was the fact of the availability of what drugs they had available. And it would appear that clomid, clomiphene citrate, is a lot better choice. Now, dosing. This is the bit that's been very, very difficult. They've done some digging. Now, in fertility treatment or an increase in hormonal treatment, clomid is generally given for 5 days at 50 milligrams between days 3 and 8 of the cycle. So this is where it's important to know your cycle. Obviously, when you come off a steroid cycle, you're not gonna know what your menstrual cycle is. So from what, and this is all really educated guess, I'm afraid, but from what I can tell, what the best bet is to run clomid at 50 milligrams per day until your cycle starts. And then you'll then know your days. You've got your start day, because your start day is the day you first start to bleed. And then you can then set up so that on your next cycle, do a short blast between day 3 and day 8 of 50 milligrams a day. And that should be you fully restored. However, it would also appear that HCG is very effective as well. What I'm unsure of with HCG is the period. What I do know is the dose. As a treatment for low hormone levels in the female, you're looking at 450 IU a day for 5 days, same as the Clomid treatment. Now, the HCG diet was dosed at 125 to 200 a day, depending on where your body fat levels were. So, we are chemically induced shutdown. So, we're going to need a little bit more than a normal natural boost because we've got some forces forcing it. And again, it would also depend on the drugs that you were using. But for those that are using Tren or Deca in particular, or have been on a particularly long period of times, or are using aromatizing drugs, I would recommend a short course of HCG. And I would recommend 250 IU every other day until the start of your next menstrual cycle. And then repeat the Clomid. If you're on your usual DHT style non-aromatizing drugs like Anavar, the most common one, then I'd just run the Clomid as PCT. But that would be my recommendation at this stage. So the next thing I need is some volunteers. So I need some ladies that are willing to give this a bash. Now, what I can tell you is there's no real negatives. Clomid is a selective estrogen receptor modulator. And basically it works by blocking the estrogen receptors at the hypothalamus, causing an increase in FSH and LH production. So it's not really something you're going to OD on. Medically, there is no treatment issues with treatment. I've even gone through one of my medical doctors practicing books, and I will actually read you what it says regards to Clomid. Overdose danger rating, low. Dependence rating, low. And that's it. So it basically tells you that there is no need, or there's no dependency, and there's no danger of overdose. Now, what it's generally saying is that you take 50 milligrams daily for 5 days, starting at around day 2 to day 3 of your cycle. Obviously, coming off the cycle, you don't know this, so you take it and you continue it. Now, you've also got to time this with the half-life of the drugs. This is going to get a little bit complex for most people, so if you're running orals and Anavars, it's days, we've not got any big issues. If you're running Deca, it's weeks and it's dose dependent. So if you're running a slow-acting ester, Deca, and Anthe, anything like that, I'd say wait about 10 days, then start. And continue, like I say, until you get the starting. Even spotting, the slightest amount of menstrual blood, then stop. Time your cycle from that point, and then repeat in time with the next cycle. But if you're running Deca and Tren and those sort of things, then I would also recommend HCG. Again, I'll start about 10 days post last injection. Obviously, HCG at those doses is not going to be particularly problematic, and there should be no issues. Whatever issues there are completely reversible, so there's no issues of any long-term damage or problems caused by these protocols. And that's my main concern, is that anyone that's going to try these and feed me back information is that you're safe. And from everything I can tell, there's no downside as such. So that's where we're at. Both these drugs have a dramatic impact on LH and FSH. HCG obviously mimics LH, so that's going to restore ovarian size and ovarian production quite quickly. And Clomid acts on the hypothalamus, producing more GnRH, which in turn produces more FSH and more LH. And those doses are not high enough to desensitize any of the ovarian cells. So 250 every other day, HCG, until spotting, with Clomid at 50 milligram a day, every day until spotting. If on any particularly suppressive drugs like Deca or Trenbolone, and if it's a usual VAR, 50 milligram of Clomid every day until spotting starts, and then potentially repeat Clomid on day 2 to 3 of your next cycle for 5 days. However, this is fertility treatment, so you are potentially going to be very susceptible to falling pregnant, particularly on the repeat dose at the beginning of the second cycle. So I would recommend that you put a hat on it. Otherwise, you may have unwanted little ones running around. But hopefully, this is going to be a decent step forward in trying to sort this mess out for you ladies. What I need now is people to try it and give me feedback. I appreciate that's a big ask. I would try it myself, but I'm the wrong sex, so it isn't really going to be useful. Though my wife still says I'm a big fanny. But anyway, I digress. So please let me know, either privately or in the thread below. I'd appreciate any information, feedback, comments, or with people that are willing to give it a go. Thank you very much.